What's up, guys? It's Nurse Hancock coming at you with another video in the car. Just got a little bit of a drive and thought, why not make a video real quick, get some of this crap out of my mind. And it's on Wim Hof method. Wim Hof method. I have fell in love with this method and this concept, this idea for about, it's going on 2 to 3 weeks now. It's the beginning of March, so I can't remember exactly when in February I caught wind of this, but it's getting close to 3 weeks, and I'm still learning and I'm still trying to learn, and I already know that I would love to host some classes and do this technique. That's how much I already believe in it in such a short amount of time, only 2 to 3 weeks. The science is there backing it up, but I wanted to give you a Christian approach to understanding this, which, by the way, I have not heard anybody talk of the Wim Hof method the way I'm going to talk about it eventually. I'm going to get through Wim Hof method and tell you a little bit about the science and about it, and then I'm going to tell you about maybe throughout I'll tell you about the Christian viewpoint, Christian mindset, because, I am a Christian, right? That's who I am. I love the Bible, and I have faith in the Bible, and that's just what I do. That's my truth. And I think not anything, but a lot of things in this world can be connected back with the Bible. Truth, because in Colossians chapter 2 it says, he holds the key, the treasures of wisdom and knowledge is within, our Lord, right? And so there's so much wisdom that's being overlooked, and it's because people are dwelling on their own understanding, and they're going by what they know, what they measure, and then applying it to their own knowledge, their own understanding. And this is causing them to miss a lot of wisdom that's in the Bible and that's in the world. But anyways, so that's just kind of me, how I look at things. I'm always looking back at how it connects with the Bible, or if it can be connected back to the Bible. And I think Wim Hof has a unique way of connecting back to some biblical understandings, and along with some scientific understandings. And I'm going to share that with you today, which is kind of an original thing, because I cannot find it anywhere on YouTube or Google, which is pretty cool. But it also sheds light, if this is the original thought stemming from Wim Hof, that just goes to show how Christians are missing their opportunity. They're missing their opportunity to point people back towards the Bible and back towards ultimately Jesus. And it's because of fear. They're afraid to look into things. And anyways, so just bear with me. I'm going to try to get through this under 30 minutes, but we'll see how that works. So Wim Hof is a guy. His name is Wim Hof. He's from Poland or somewhere in another country. He has always experimented with yoga and all these different practices, trying to find himself in life, filling that void, which we all know, if you're a Christian, that Jesus Christ fills. But he kept searching, and his wife had depression real bad. Pharmaceuticals couldn't help, doctors couldn't help. It eventually led to her suicide. And this kind of drove him, his journey. He says his journey really began there. I mean, it began when he was 17, but it really began, I think, when his wife died, because it drove him out in the cold. By this time, he already had understanding of breathing exercises and the power and the ability to focus and things like that. Like he'd already discovered and learned all these things throughout his life. But this time he combined it with a cold. He just jumped in some ice water one day, and he says he didn't stay but maybe 30 seconds, but he felt the energy and the power. So anytime there's energy, there's power somewhere, right? Energy is power. So he felt that in the cold, and he knew that there was something more there. So he started to, he didn't have a master or a teacher, and that's what he says. I don't have a master or a teacher, which is unfortunate. And this is why Christians will probably avoid it, because this man doesn't credit things back to God where he should. And that's our jobs of a Christian. He made a discovery. He made a breakthrough. It's up to Christians to point it back to God, not some atheist. How's an atheist supposed to credit it back to God? It's never going to happen. That's Christians' jobs. So anyways, he made a discovery. He started claiming that you could basically influence your body's abilities as far as immune response and just pain and just anything that has to do with the mind. But he was mainly talking about depression, anxiety, and like immune responses. So nobody believed him, and he didn't get a whole lot of publicity. I mean, I'm talking about decades went by. And finally, he has somebody, science. Finally has somebody at a university with some scientists who's going to test him out. Let's see if this dude knows what the heck he's talking about. If he don't, we'll shut him up, basically. So he did his method, and then they drew his blood in the ice. And maybe I should tell you what the method is. Okay, so it's a breathing method. A lot of deep breaths over several rounds, and then you're focusing, and then you get into cold water, or it could just be going outside in the snow, but just some sort of cold struggle. If you get into cold water and it's not a struggle, then that's not cold enough. There's got to be a struggle there, and then overcoming that, and then that's it. That's a simple technique. That's it. That's all there is to it. There's no pill, and there's nothing else. I mean, there's some more details involved in that, but anyways, that's the gist of it. So he did his technique, and he was in the ice. He uses ice, really cold, and all sorts of crazy things they established and documented. Right? And one of the most intriguing things to me was they drew his blood while he was in the cold and took it to the lab and injected endotoxins on it, such as like E. coli and stuff. And his blood basically rejected it, had zero inflammatory response, just the blood just basically knocked it dead, so to speak, in simple terms. I mean, it was effortless by the blood. Like, there was no inflammatory response. The blood was still functioning like normal, which is not what you see in a normal person's blood, right? A lot of responses and inflammatory reactions. So they took it back to him and said, "This is amazing. Would you care to allow us to inject this in you now?" And he said, "Sure." And he did not get sick. Now, this isn't some magic trick like some Chris Angel, let's stage it all up and trick everybody. That's not what this is. This was legitimate science. So they said, "Well, you're just a freak of nature. You have this ability that nobody has because you are Wim Hof, the Iceman Wim Hof. That's who you are. That's why this is happening." And he said, "No, that's not true. This can be done by anybody. The power is there within everybody." So he began to get a group. Well, the scientist first told him, he said, "Well, if you are able to show this and repeat it and be successful with a group of people, versus another group of people, and you can repeat this, then we're going to have to change the way we look at things, and basically change the textbooks and science. And so he said, bring it on. And they tested over 1,000 people eventually. And I got to get my numbers straight. It's either 1,600 or 16,000. Anyways, they paid, and this might have been overtime. I don't know how long that time period is. But anyways, they paid these people like 400 euros or something like that to just take a chance of getting sick. And they all got sick. They all basically got paid 400 euros to get sick. They injected it in them, and they all got sick. But Wim Hof people took them through his Wim Hof method, and then they got injected, and none of them got sick. I think 12 people, and 100% did not get sick. So he proved in science, and he can repeat this in science. Now, it's not something I'd like to see just continually done. It's kind of just tempting, like injecting harmful things that you know are harmful in the blood, in the body. I don't want them to do any more of that, because there's something about just tempting fate, or not really fate, but just tempting reality like that. It's not. I don't like seeing people do that, because nothing's 100%. I mean, he was successful 100%, and I think he could be successful again, and I don't know how many studies there were, but he proved in science, and this can be repeatable, and he's done it. He's subjected himself to science on more than one occasion. And they've tested his blood before and after. They've noticed his pH levels, or their pH levels, slightly going up due to the breathing techniques. So there's chemical changes happening in the body through this method. No doubt, confirmed by science, chemical changes happening in the body through this method. You can't argue with that. The science is there. And the results are amazing. And so the Christian mindset to all this is that it's God's design, right? This is all God's design. If this breakthrough has shown us are some of our capabilities that we need to tap back into. Now, what I mean by tap back into, okay, it goes back to the Bible. Yay! So in Genesis, the Bible says that a water firmament, and it also goes back to faith. Let me just mention that real quick. Faith. The Bible says the mustard seed size of faith has the power to move mountains. I mean, it's emphasizing that faith is powerful, and this is exactly the explanation of a placebo effect. The faith is faith, but Wim Hof's proven that it's more than a placebo effect with the measurements of the blood work and the pH and all that stuff, and the endotoxin stuff. So that's all. It's not placebo, because we see physically some science, some chemicals changing and reacting. So it's not a placebo effect, but faith explains the placebo effect. When a person takes a water pill or sugar pill or whatever, basically nothing, in their mind, see, they don't tell them that they're giving them nothing. They tell them that they're getting medicine. So that's why everything is tested against the placebo, which is basically nothing, because placebos always have an effect. So if you can't beat the power of the mind, then it's not considered very good medicine or whatever, right? So the power of the mind, that's the placebo. That's how the placebo gets its its results. Every placebo studies, there's always positive results. Not much, but there is positive results there. And those people just had very powerful minds. They thought what they were taking was going to make them better, and it did. You know what I'm saying? Faith has a lot to do with this method as well. But anyways, going back to the actual method, where was I at? So, okay, yeah, going back to Genesis and the water firmament. I'm making it home from work now. My mind's got off. I get close to home, I'm thinking kids and family and all that. But anyways, so we'll go back to Genesis. The water firmament was created in the atmosphere, which we do not see now. Now, this is a big dilemma for science and religion, or the Bible, if you will, because science wants to go by exactly what they can see and measure, their own understanding. The Bible kind of warns us about just strictly going on your own understanding. So it's essentially warning scientists about doing that. Because there's things like the water firmament in the atmosphere that was created according to the Bible that cannot be measured and cannot be accounted for. So how are you going to measure something in ancient times when you're not considering or taking into effect the water firmament in the atmosphere? You can't do that. It's going to give you different science than what reality is. And this is why science is all jacked up. It's because we're not considering the truth of the Bible and how that would affect the science that we see today, how it would affect it in the past times. So the water firmament, if you go to the smartest people, credentialed scientists, not myself, I'm a nurse, but if you go to the scientists that are credentialed in these fields of understanding, and they'll go there with you, like consider whether or not a water firmament was there and what that would look like. And I'm a Christian. I have faith in the Bible. So I believe the water firmament was there based on faith. But once you start connecting the dots with everything else we see in science, it becomes supported faith by science. It's very interesting how everything pieces together with science and with the Bible. It does. People tell me it doesn't all the time, but it does. I point it to them and they just jump on to the next topic like I never even addressed it. It's like jumping around the next topics, and I give them answers. Sometimes I have to look them up. I can't hold them all in here, but what I'm saying is there's an answer for it all. And sometimes it requires a little faith, like the water firmament. It says it in Genesis. There was a water firmament in the atmosphere. And this is that original thought connection with the Wim Hof that I haven't found. I mean, it may not be an original thought, but I don't see anybody talking about it. So the water firmament, when you talk to scientists that know what they're talking about, believe that would have created a hyperbaric-like chamber over the entire globe, right? Because you're encapsulated inside, and it goes, I'm not going to go into the details of the science behind it, but they say that they think it would be like a hyperbaric chamber across the whole world. And if you know anything about hyperbaric chambers, they're extremely healthy to the human body, and it forces oxygen inside the cells. It forces the oxygen inside you because of the pressure. And if God created the world and the human body roughly at the same time, if you're a Christian, you believe in 6 days, and the seventh day you rested. You look up those translations of the word day. It even goes in explanation what day is, talking about the sun coming up and going down. It gives you literal. It's a literal understanding. 6 days, seventh day he rested. So he designed the body to live in that type of environment. So the hyperbaric-like chamber, the body would be absorbing way more oxygen than we absorb today. And which brings me to another thought. I'll forget it if I don't say it. I was just listening to Wim Hof yesterday, and he said that scientists are discovering that we misunderstood our oxygen saturation of what is 100% at a cellular level, like being able to carry oxygen. We assumed, or we considered 100% mark. And like I say, I'm not going to get into the details, but okay, so here's what we consider to be 100%, meaning we didn't think it could carry any more oxygen. But according to what Wim Hof says, he says they're now discovering that that is not accurate, that it can carry more oxygen. Now, I haven't studied that or researched that, but it would make so much sense, and it would connect with the Bible. It would be true with the Bible, in my opinion, because the water firmament would have created that hyperbaric chamber, which would force more oxygen into the cells, which would increase that level of 100%. Like, we think it's 100% because that's what we see and that's what we measure. But in a time, if you lived in a hyperbaric chamber, that oxygen goes up, right? So I've got to do some more studying and research on that topic, and as far as that claim, because I'm not sure yet. But that's interesting. It's another interesting fact, or not a fact yet to me, but interesting thing to discover or look into. So not only would that hyperbaric chamber of water firmament in the atmosphere create more oxygen, but it would also filter harmful rays. You can go in the daylight into your house, blackout shades, get in the darkest room of your house in the middle of the day, and it's pitch black. Sun rays are still penetrating your body through your house, through your walls. But water, that's why if I was a billionaire, I would design some sort of water chamber. I don't know how thick it would have to be, but some sort of water chamber of a roof and walls or something, because that would keep you safe from harmful rays. You could at least hang out and sleep at, well, at night time you might not have harmful rays, I don't know, but during the day you had a little safe place to go to. No harmful rays getting at you then. But you can't escape it. But people like Adam and Eve and all his family, but pre-flood, they didn't experience any harmful rays due to this water firmament. And the combination of it all, the perfect environment, the water was not mixed and churned with any kind of bull crap. It was perfect. I believe it had B12 in it because bacteria produces B12, and healthy bacteria would be in the water. Nobody's chlorinating it. It's natural, good, healthy bacteria there. When you drank the water back then, you were probably getting so much nutrition from the electrolytes and naturally there, the B12. Just when you start writing it all down, the whole 9 yards, this is how people lived to be 900 years old. This is how Adam and Eve lived to be so long, because of design. God's not some magician. It's all by design. It's design. I'm a firm believer he uses science because that's his building blocks. And he designs because he's a designer. He's a creator. And he created the human body to live in a highly oxygenated environment. Sin came and cursed a lot of stuff away. And it eventually led to the flood, which then led to water both coming from the earth, Mount springs, and it talks about the window opening up and from the heavens. I believe that's when the water firmament came down from the atmosphere. It could have been an asteroid or a rock that he slung in through the atmosphere, opening that window, so to speak, and I think it says window, and all the water came down, and that's why we can't measure or see, but there is moisture up there. So that to me could be evidence of where there's smoke, there's fire. Where there's moisture, there could have been water. And This is why when you see ancient air pockets, like fossilized air pockets, if you happen to be in a room with a scientist and y'all are about to experiment with some ancient air pockets, put as much money as you can that there's going to be more oxygen in that air pocket than in our atmosphere, in our air today. Put your money on it, because it's going to be true. And that's what we see when we investigate ancient fossilized air pockets. We test them. The oxygen levels are so much higher, and that's due to the water firmament in the atmosphere. And this is all coming from credentialed scientists that study. This is their field of study, and this is what they're saying. So Wim Hof has, in my opinion, found a way to flood the system with oxygen again. This is why, this is part of a reason why, every time something happens to us, what do? We usually take a deep breath. We get in cold water. What do? It's a stressor. It's a cold stressor. What do? Somebody dies in our life. You know what I'm saying? You have a stressor. What do? You have a panic attack. You have a crazy panic attack. What starts happening? It all goes back to the breath of life, doesn't it? The breath. Your breath. And that's another concept I've been toying around since I've since I've been talking about Wim Hof and exploring the Wim Hof. Is God breathed in the breath of life when He created us. And I have to believe that breath of life is still flowing here now. Oxygen could be part of the breath of life. Now, there could be something spiritual and something more magical there that happened in the beginning. I'm not saying that this is literally the breath of life. This is literally, like, if I had a jar of air, this is literally what God breathed in. It could have been much more. It could be much more. More spiritual context to it, more, whatever. But I'm inclined to believe that oxygen and the breath that we breathe today is at least fragment or a part of the breath of life. When He breathed in the breath of life. And we're breathing it in constantly, right? At least a fraction, at least a fragment of it. And oxygen has proven its worth. And so when we do this, we're fully consuming this breath, this oxygen. It spreads through our body. Chemical changes happen. And it's controlled hyperventilation is what it is. You'll begin to tingle and all kind of stuff. That's normal. People with panic attacks. And you can see the pH increases in the ER. When people have panic attacks, they will go to the ER and their pH will be slightly elevated. There's chemical changes. And it's the body's intelligent way. I feel like it's almost, every time we take a breath from a stressor, it's almost instilled in us by design, maybe. Or the body's intelligence, as if we need the breath. Because we're about to deal with something. We need the breath of life because we're about to deal with something, right? And Wim Hof is focusing on that breath, on that breathing. And the focus you get and the clarity you get, the mood that you get, the feeling that you get can be amazing. And then when you combine that with a stressor like cold, which the cold is very unique because it has ways to strengthen your mind, but it's also very beneficial for your cardiovascular system. There's millions of little muscles in our cardiovascular system and that lymph system that really don't get that exercise today. It's very hard to do that. I mean, how are you going to exercise little tiny muscles that, you can't go to the gym and do it. It's just, so the cold works out those little tiny muscles. So it's extremely healthy for your lymphatic system. It's extremely healthy for your cardiovascular system. And it's extremely healthy for your mind. Why? Because you are conquering something. You are literally conquering something in your mind. When you get into that cold water, I'm going to tell you what, you're going to want to quit. You're going to want to run. You're going to want to stop. just like all your other problems you're trying to deal with. You want to run from them. You want to quit. You want to do anything but address them and overcome them. You want to do everything else but overcome it. And when you overcome the cold, your body is being worked out subconsciously in a way that I don't even know how to explain. That muscle, if you will, is being worked out. And when you successfully overcome the cold like that, and you conquer it, you are strengthening your mind. And that spills over into your reality and the way you deal with problems and stressors in your life. And people that come to Wim Hof method, they overcome stress and anxiety. They overcome a lot of different things in their life through God design. See, Christians need to be pointing this back to the credit where it belongs, to God, and the design of the human body and how He originally designed this world. And Christians are just failing. They stick with ignorance is bliss, and nothing else matters but Jesus. And that's true, but here's what's happening while you're sitting on your tush saying nothing else matters but Jesus. These atheists are getting a blessing left and right from God's design. And you know what? They're still atheists because Christians are sitting at home saying nothing else matters but Jesus. Okay? That's why it matters, right? So we can actually point people to the truth of the matter, to God, and ultimately to Jesus, right? That's why these things matters. That's why Christians should always be looking and exploring with people, with our advancements, with our understanding, knowledge. In the end times, knowledge will be increased. Where is that said at? Is that in Daniel? I don't know where it's at. I think it's in Daniel. Our knowledge will be increased. Both atheist, both Christian, both Buddhist, whatever. Our knowledge as humanity will be increased. If Christians are sitting at home on their butts saying nothing else matters but Jesus, they're missing out on opportunities to win people to Christ. Okay? We have to wake up. We have to get out of the slump that we're in. And that transitions to a whole nother topic of being sick and unhealthy. But we've got to get out of the slump. Okay, so Wim Hof method. I get passionate about it. Some of these things it frustrates me, but all I can do is love people and try to help. And that's what Nurse Hancock's here to do. And this Wim Hof method has the ability, through God's design, through the original design, through the original system that was created, kind of tapping into that a little bit, getting that oxygen full in your body, getting that breath of life full in your body, focusing, and use this time for prayer. Use this time for prayer and meditation. The atheists may want to think about whatever they want to think about. Christians could use this time for prayer and meditation, focusing on what God wants you to do and what God's will for you is. This is a perfect time to do that. As you talk about the breath of life and then the old original design, as focus on whatever you want to focus on. Focus on whatever you want to focus on. And then overcome the cold. Prove to your body. Give your mind the food, the thought, the strength that it needs to overcome something. And some people do this naturally. Some people are go-getters. They get out here and they overcome. They're overcoming. They're overcoming many things. They'll overcome this. They'll overcome that. Overcome this. They're overcoming. You know what? Those people do not deal with stress and anxiety like a lot of people do. They're stronger minded, right? So, but I shouldn't say they never deal with stress, because we all deal with stress. I don't care how strong your mind is, you're going to deal with some stress, and it might create a little bit of anxiety. But these are ways. Go back to the breath of life, if you will. Go back to the breath. Go back to these ways of kind of boosting the body a little bit. Now, this isn't like a one-time thing. There's people that's been doing this every day for years, every single day for years. And all they have is positive things to say about it. how it's improved their life, how they never get allergies, how they hardly ever get sick. Sometimes they'll get sick. It's like it's just changed their life. And I credit that back to God's design and God's original purpose for this body to thrive in a very rich, oxygenated, hyperbaric-like chamber environment. And we'll never get that again. But these are just little ways that do this method. Give the glory and the credit back to God. Thank Him. Once you feel good and you start overcoming things in your life, you better credit it back to God, especially if you use this method, right? And this is Nurse Hancock, and this is my spin, Christian spin on the Wim Hof method, and why you and anybody in your life should incorporate it and not be afraid of it, okay? I love you. I want to do a class, free. I'm not trying to make money on this. I'm trying to help people. Now, one day, if I only do this, I might have to charge because I got to pay bills, in the future. But right now, I got a good job, pays my bills. I ain't worried about making more money as far as that goes. Let's do some classes for free. Who wants to do it? Hit me up, call me, look me up, whatever. I love y'all. God bless. I'm sure I missed a lot of stuff that I wanted to say, but I'll say it some other time. All right, bye.